Well, hello again. Hello, everybody. I'm so sorry for the long delay since my last little video was uploaded. I've been rather busy. Yeah, I'll explain why. Right now, I'm not in Myanmar anymore. I just got back to Bangkok. I'm in the park near Asok in Bangkok, Benjikit Park. Very nice place with a lake and a running track or cycling track, and so I decided to come out, not to do any running or cycling, I might add, but just to get some fresh air and a bit of exercise walking around. I'm not in Myanmar anymore right now. I came back because of the fuel crisis. Yeah, with the problems with the oil, there's a big petrol fuel shortage in many countries. Yeah, and at petrol stations there were literally 500 motorbikes queuing up to get fuel, and it affected the plane flights, especially the domestic ones. I was due to fly from Ho Airport in Shan State back to Yangon, and at first the planes were cancelled. They didn't have enough fuel. And I thought this is going to make things very difficult to get back to Yangon for my flight back to Bangkok. And I changed my flight for a few days earlier, and luckily they reinstated the flights, and so I was able to catch my flight from Yangon, from Ho Airport all the way back to Yangon. It's only about 1 hour 10 minutes. Of course you can go on the coach, but the coach is like 14 hours, and I'm getting a bit old for that, and there will be many police and military checkpoints and stops and questions and so on. It's a lot of hassle. So I decided to come back on the plane, as befits my age and fragility. Yeah. So I need to make a few more videos about what I've been doing. This video, actually, I thought I'd explain all about the orphanages in Myanmar, and what I mean by orphanages, because in my videos I say, well, I have an educational charity, Teacher Simon, teachersimon.org, and I visit and donate educational resources to orphanages and similar establishments. Well, you might sort of get the idea that there are literally hundreds or even thousands of orphanages throughout Myanmar, but really what it is, it's not really, for the most part, orphans, those without parents or those who've been abandoned by their parents. There's about 4 different kinds of children or young persons who stay at these orphanages or children's homes. So I'll explain it briefly. First, yes, there are orphans, but I guess there's not that many of them. So they just form a small number of children who are at these children's homes. Perhaps some of them did have parents, but their parents have been killed in the fighting with bombing, etc., and they've been left abandoned. Number 2 would be, which I think is the vast majority of young people at these homes, at these so-called orphanages, are children whose parents live in rural areas and are in the main subsistence farmers. So they're just growing crops for their own needs to get enough food to eat. And therefore they literally don't have enough money. They don't have the income to buy a school uniform, buy the school textbooks that you need to have for the government school, and any, associated fees, and to buy, everyday clothes and so on. It's a long established practice in Myanmar, because there are so many families who don't have a big income or have an extremely small income, is to send their children to a monastery school, to a Buddhist monastery school in a nearby city, or nearby town, and so this is the situation for many decades. UNICEF, United Nations Children's Fund, always says the best place for children is with their family, and I agree. But it doesn't really work like that in Myanmar, because of the situation in Myanmar for so many years, and the fact that NGOs, international NGOs, are all but banned or find it very difficult to work in Myanmar. Trying to get all these children back to live with their parents in the countryside and to support their parents so that they've got the income so they can look after their kids, it doesn't work. Yeah, and so it's a far better situation for those children to be taken care of in a monastery school, because that means they are with other children of their own age, they're in a safe environment in the monastery, they get clothes, they get food every day, and they get enough food, and they have somewhere safe to sleep and somewhere safe to play, and they receive a basic education. So a basic education would be usually Myanmar language, some simple maths, primary maths. If you're lucky, a little bit of English, although I've met many English teachers, local English teachers, who I'm afraid don't speak a word of English, but we need to do something about that. Yeah, and also Buddhist principles, because most of the religion in Myanmar is Buddhism. On the east side, in places in Shan State, there's Christian religion as well, and so there are some Christian schools, but for the most part they're monastery schools. The third type of child who might be in a monastery school would actually be where the parents want their son or daughter to become a monk or become a nun, and so they send them at a young age to the monastery school. And let's say for the boys, they would be novice monks, they would have their head shaved, and they would learn about the Buddhist precepts and so on and so on. I'm not Buddhist, so I'm not going to go into great detail in that. So at some of the monastery schools that I visited, I see two kinds of boys. Ones who are novice monks, wearing the robes of a novice monk, and the other ones are boys who are just in normal clothes, who haven't enrolled as a novice monk. And so the two mix together completely, equally, but obviously the novice monks are on a track to be a monk. Yeah, and so really those are the sort of children who are in these so-called orphanages. In some countries, maybe in Cambodia, I've heard over the years of so-called scam orphanages, where an orphanage, a children's home, is set up with some very poor-looking children who are kept deprived of food, so they look skinny and wanting for love and donations, and the owner of the children's home happily accepts donations, financial donations, for his new Mercedes Benz. And so there's always warnings in countries like that: do not visit orphanages, because it may well be a scam. In Myanmar, I've never ever heard of that happening, because the idea of monastery schools has been around for decades and decades and decades, and I have met chief monks with iPhones, which was a bit of a surprise, but generally, they're not driving Mercedes or whatever. The children's homes are genuine, and so you can, some kind of donation will genuinely help. Now, as for me, you hear of people giving donations, financial donations to children's homes and orphanages. I never do that, because I simply trust nobody with my little money that I've got. I only give items, i.e. things that the orphanage or the children's home says that they need. So, if I visit a monastery school or a children's home or orphanage that I've never been to before, I'll find out, the grades and the ages and how many students there are at each age, and then find out what they actually need to help them learn English. Because I'm not donating food or anything. Everyday food is very generously donated by local Myanmar people to make sure that the children have enough food or have enough clothes or whatever. I just solely concentrate on education, because it's all I know about, really. Teaching rocket science from my previous career, it's probably going to be a waste of time for the youngest ones. And I don't have a lot of money, which is why I don't just give money, because I don't know where it goes. If a school says they need some school books and some rulers or whatever, I'll go to the shop and go and buy what they need and bring it back and donate it, knowing that I've actually provided what the school says they need, or what the orphanage says they need. Last bit about visiting children's homes. There's many comments, quite rightly, on the internet about, you shouldn't really allow strangers to visit children's homes and to play with the kids. And yes, I understand exactly where they're coming from. I very rarely have time to play with the kids, to be honest. I'm more concerned with speaking with the local teachers and asking about the resources they need, and helping them install my little mobile app, which will help them to improve their teaching of English. But I certainly agree. The orphanages, perhaps the people who run orphanages in Myanmar are a little bit naive about foreigners who might want to visit an orphanage or children's home. But to be perfectly realistic. No dirty old pervert is going to risk coming to Myanmar with the civil war and so many restrictions when they could go elsewhere, to put it bluntly. So I've never ever met anybody who, obviously you don't know what's going on, but people that I've met, few and far between, who visit orphanages in Myanmar and children's homes, seem like pretty normal people. And in any case, quite rightly, they're not left alone with the children. Yeah, in some countries you can take a couple of the kids out to go to the swimming pool. Very strangely, if you ask me, something to do that. If you're going to take the children out, you must take all of them with plenty of helpers from the orphanage. Like if you were going to the swimming pool or the local zoo, you wouldn't take 2 children. You would take the whole lot or a whole class, and you absolutely need the local staff to help you, because anybody who's been a kindergarten teacher or a primary, lower primary grades teacher like me knows full well that getting young kids to go where you want them to go is like herding cats. It's totally impossible. You need help to get them all to go in the right direction and to do what you want. As for me, I've got my police background reports from Thailand and from the UK, very recent ones. So, I think everybody knows what I'm doing is above all suspicion. And, quite frankly, it costs me a lot of money and a lot of effort and a lot of stress at times trying to fathom out how I can reach a certain monastery school, or even having to speak Burmese to ask local people, well, where is the monastery school? And they're amazed I speak Burmese, and they tell me in great detail the directions to get to the monastery school, which I don't understand a single word of, because my Burmese is still at a basic level. I can ask where is the monastery school for kids, but I don't understand the answer. Right, I need to improve that, which I will talk about in another lesson, in another video as well. And I've got some more videos to do. It's very hot out here, so that's long enough for this video. I'm going to walk around the lake, maybe have a swim. No, I don't think you're allowed to do that, actually. And then back for an ice cream or something, and I'll get this video all processed and uploaded. All right, and see you very soon for the next video. Okay, bye.